Who ya, buddy? Who's the little dragon man? You the little dragon man, yes you are. Hey, Dev! What's up, Blaze? How you doing, lady? Oh, nothing. I'm just really hot right now. Oh, yeah, man. You're, like, super popular right now, actually. Everybody wants your deck, dude. Budget, is it Counterburn? I've got, like, 1,000 requests for that. No, I mean, I'm burning to death. Oh, jeez. Try these glasses on. It feels twice as bad now. Why would sunglasses help put somebody out on fire? You said you were hot. I thought they might make you look cooler. For God's sakes, help me! I got the music in me, knew it simply had to be my destiny. I'm blessed to be the best within my CNHEND. Please believe not Ninja Gaiden. I'm not the guy to fight with them lightning. They come in dumb and I leave them enlightened. What is up, my wizards? Dev from SBMTG back again with a highly anticipated deck. This is Budget Is It Counterburn. This time around, another Budget Is It deck. In like the last 2 weeks, we've got a couple of them. Pretty flexible deck, a lot of different options for it. So let's go ahead and give it to you. Let me go ahead and give you the counters here. I know you're going to bristle immediately when I tell you that out of the 10 counter spells we're playing, none of them cost less than 3 mana. We want to play Disdainful Stroke, although that ended up getting cut to the sideboard, and Nullify I also like to play, but let me go ahead and tell you what we are playing. 3 copies of Calculated Dismissal, 4 copies of Dissolve, and 3 copies of Mindswipe. Let me tell you a bit about these to begin with. Now, I'm going to get to Calculated Dismissal. Dissolve, I want to get out of the way. The premier counterspell in the format, the best hard counter in the format, maybe Silumgar's Scorn a little bit better in some things, but in this, Dissolve is our best counterspell, hands down. Dissolve is as good as it's ever been. We need 4 copies of this. It started off as 3. Quickly realized that we need a playset of Dissolve. Calculated Dismissal, the one that people are probably already commenting on. Calculated Dismissal is actually even better than I thought it was going to be, and I thought it might be good. Calculated Dismissal in this format is often relevant up until the 7th turn against a lot of things. Even, especially, let's say, the mid-range decks, Green-Red Devotion included, and the Green-White, like, Morphine decks that use all of their mana every single turn, any Devotion deck that uses all of its mana every turn, and even aggro to some extent. Because up until the 5th turn, aggro is still using almost all of its mana. It can't afford to pay 3. And, one more thing, I have used this in conjunction with Dissolve, knowing that they can pay the 3 mana, just so I can effectively scry 3. I know that doesn't sound like great advantage, it's the opposite of advantage, but being able to scry 3 when you're constantly digging for either another counterspell or burn to take them down is just good. Scry is so good in this deck, and it is very, very much worth playing Calculated Dismissal. You will almost always counter the spell that you want to counter with this, and it only is bad on 8th turn and above, which I'm not saying doesn't happen, but Calculated Dismissal is on, it's live, up until the 6th, 7th, sometimes higher turns, so love Calculated Dismissal. I've said enough about it at this point. Really like the card. Mindswipe. Mindswipe is a finisher sometimes for us, especially against other control decks if they don't, if they can't counter the counterspell effectively. Some decks, we will just, Mindswipe them for 4. They might be able to pay, but they're going to be hit for 4. This is sometimes a, I'll burn you for as much mana as I can generate, even if I'm not going to be able to counter the spell. It'll end the game sometimes, especially with the amount of burn we're playing. This is sometimes a finisher, man. Really, really like Mindswipe. Is good against nearly everything, and again, is very good at countering these huge mid-range decks that we see, and pretty good against other control decks, which we have an issue with in this build. Let me go ahead and tell you about the burn that we're playing instead. We're playing 12 cards that burn the opponent, not counting Mindswipe. 2 of them are Wild Slash. We're playing 4 Magma Jet, 4 Lightning Strike, and 2 Ravaging Blaze. Now, let me go ahead and tell you, Wild Slash, obviously just for the aggro builds that we're going to see a lot of, and late game, it's really not a horrible top deck. Magma Jet is a must-play for us. Started off as a 3, another thing that made it to a 4 of because it's invaluable. Not only can we often bust important creatures in this format, Rabblemaster, Pile Driver, Shaman of the Pack, most elves as a matter of fact, most soldiers, a lot of the things that people are playing with in aggro decks. But Scry 2 is just mind-blowing. We can get our drops, and we can go into more burns so that we can take down their other aggro creatures that we're worried about. We are worried about aggro in the early stages of the game, but we do fairly well against aggro, even game 1. So, Magma Jet, really, really like it. Lightning Strike. Lightning Strike is classic. Don't really have to talk too much about it. It needs to be a 4 in this deck because it's just Lightning Strike. And then Ravaging Blaze. Ravaging Blaze, I really, really like. Just to kill a guy and deal 3 to 5 to the opponent is very good, I think. And we're going very long in this deck if we can help it. So there's times where if they just have a dude on the field, we don't care. You know, if we kill the guy or not, it can just be a 1-1. We're going to deal 10 to them very late in the game. Talk for a second about the other spells we're playing. We're playing 9 other spells. Let's go ahead and tell you about the 2 Anger of the Gods main deck. This is something else that helps us out against aggro decks, which we can have a problem with for a couple of different reasons. We need to, make our burn go to the face, and although we can deal with aggro's creatures, if we spend too many burn spells on their creatures, we're going to have a hard time actually finishing the game out. So something like Anger of the Gods, which does for us what 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 burn spells would do instead, is an invaluable card. Want to at least play the 2 main deck. To anticipate, moving on to sort of the advantage suit here, to anticipate is important. Wanted it to be 3 or 4, but decided that 2 was good. We're playing an awful lot of things that draw cards, and anticipate, essentially scry 3 and draw 1 of the cards, is fantastic. We got to play it. Although I could understand if you wanted to play more. We're playing 1 copy of Steam Augury in the deck, just because I think it's sort of a must-play. A mini-factor fiction ability is very good, especially considering that we're going to get some burn most of the time off of this, which remember is what we are looking for late game a lot of the time. And finally, to finish off, well, actually, let's give you 2 more advantage cards. 1, Dragon Lord's Prerogative. Started off as Jace's Ingenuity. Again, we're comfortable going long, and late in the game, we're just looking to draw a burn. So 4 cards, much better than 3. I think we can all agree. And Jace's Ingenuity, just not as good. Dragon Lord's Prerogative, very, very good card. Drawing 4 is just unbelievable. And then 2 copies of, you may have guessed, Treasure Cruise in this budget build. If it weren't budget, we'd play Dig Through Time all day, and Dig Through Time's only like $5 on TCG Player. If you got a couple, throw them in. But Treasure Cruise, very important card. Drawing 3, especially when we can play this for just a couple of mana, maybe even just the 1, is awesome. So, want to play that. Definitely, I think it's an auto-include. Aside from that, we're playing 1 copy of Aether Spout, something that also helps us out against aggro. I can understand if you wanted to move this to the board, although we are playing spouts on the board. I can understand if you want to move this to the board, maybe play another copy of maybe a Disdainful Stroke, for instance, another copy of Mindswipe, maybe some more burn. I can understand that too. So that's a pretty flexible slot, the Aether Spouts, but it has worked out very well in testing, especially considering that, like right now, elves, goblins, those decks are just blowing up. So pretty cool card to have, especially since we'll make it there with all the other burn we're packing. We'll make it to the 5th turn. So that right there is all the spells in the deck. We're only running 2 creatures, and it's this dude, the little Chimera Man. Yeah, this guy does a lot of work. Tony suggested maybe even a 4 of in this guy in this deck of this guy. You can drop him any point in the game, top deck him. He's 3 mana, and late in the game like that, you should have enough mana up after you cast him to protect him with counter spells, burn other things out of the way. So really, the card has functioned very well for us in testing. Is a little weak, and against other control decks, this is where they're going to play all the removal that has been dead in their hand all game because we don't play other creatures. So there is that to worry about. But against a lot of other decks, aggro included, and even some mid-range decks since this flies, we'll just be able to drop this late in the game if it survives a turn, which we can, again, protect it with counter spells. Then we should be able to fly in for a lot of damage, often way more than we need to finish out the game. Do love the Chimera, and would not mind playing more copies, a full playset even, because he is usually our grand finisher at the end of the game. Love the guy. Let's go ahead and give you the lands. We're playing 27 lands. Very important we get our drops, especially since we're playing things like Ravaging Blaze, Mindswipe. Really can't play too many lands in the deck. And we're drawing a lot of cards, so we've got to cycle through, and scrying. So we're going to cycle through lands that we don't need and get lands that we do. You see the Foundry of the Consoles, another sort of win condition in this deck. I think that's actually not bad. And then the 2 Majoring Networks is also important, again, for Ravaging Blast and Mindswipe. They do very, very well. Last thing I'll say is that the Temple of Epiphanies and the Cave of, the Shivan Reef are where literally all of the money in the deck comes from. Without the lands in this deck, we're looking at maybe, $10 on TCG Players, something like that, maybe even less. Maybe even less. But I do, at the end of the day, suggest that you play the Temples above all else. You don't necessarily have to play the Shivan Reef, although it's pretty good. You could play Evolving Wilds, which again helps for Delve, Treasure Cruise, that's important. So there is that angle you could take on it too, but I suggest definitely that you play the Temples if you possibly can. Let me go ahead and throw up the board here. A very, very important board for the first time in a while as far as decks I've made. I feel like we actually get a little better post boards. We specialize much better, like most control decks do. Exquisite Firecraft, I think, a full play set in the board, and here's why. Against other control, we do have a bit of an issue closing out the game. It can be very hard. I considered Sphinx's tutelage in this spot against other aggro, and I think that works okay too, but you have to resolve it. This, if we can go through a long, grindy game against other control, which does happen all the time against other control decks, then 4 copies of this resolving, no questions asked, is 16 damage. And it has happened. A lot of times in long, grindy games against other control, you'll deal 12 damage after boards with Exquisite Firecraft. This card is very, very good against other control decks, especially in something like this where we are also a control deck. So all we have to do is have a fair degree of inevitability. This helps grant that. That's the board. Let me know how you feel about that. And while I give you the power rankings right here, let me talk about some cards I wanted to play, ultimately didn't make the list. Well, I wanted to play really, really badly. This was in my deck for a long time. Got cut from Tony's deck quickly, and I began to see his point. I had 4 copies of Riddle of Lightning in the deck to begin with. The deck I sent Tony to test with had 3, and then he cut them, and I was like, yeah, you're probably right, bro. So, Riddle of Lightning wasn't a deck that won states, that was a blue-red control that ran no creatures. That was a couple of months ago. Although I do think the deck can probably win without Riddle of Lightning now, and this, of course, is a budget build. Were we playing cards like Dig Through Time at a 4 of, we would probably be able to play Riddle of Lightning a little bit better, because we benefit more from cards that have very high casting cost if we're playing Riddle of Lightning. Nullify. Really want to play that card still. If we could take out maybe 1 dissolve, or even some would argue a calculated dismissal in favor of a nullify, I could understand that. Before I get to the power rankings, even though you can see them right there, let me go ahead and say that if you have some money, there's a really good argument for Is It Dragons in the format right now. In that case, you get to play Icefile Regent, Stormbreath Dragon, maybe Thunderbreak Regent, not entirely sure about that. But also cards like Silumgar Scorn and Draconic Roar, which are very, very good cards and sort of a modified version of this deck. That deck is probably better, although this deck will only cost you a few bucks, all things considered. The lands, like I said, are going to be the most important thing and the most expensive thing. But all in all, this deck won't cost you a few, really more than 20 bucks to make, as long as you get everything off TCG Player. And not too much more than that if you get it off Star City, because a lot of these are commons and uncommons. Here's the power rankings. Don't let the low numbers fool you, because again, we're low in categories we don't traditionally care about as a control deck. Very, very consistent in that we draw a lot of cards. We have very many copies of the things that matter to us, burn and counter spells, and we're able to draw into them when we don't have them. So we're very, very consistent, and lots and lots of lands to make sure we get our drops. Don't worry, you won't get flooded too often. Although I can understand dropping a land, which you'll never hear me say again. I'm always in favor of higher land counts. Our defense is fairly high, although it could be higher, and it is much higher post boards, because we're able to side in things like Exquisite Firecraft and Roast, especially an important card, and Anger of the Gods. Versatility is actually a fairly high stat for us in this budget deck, because we are able to handle other aggro very well. We have some tricks against mid-range, although we have some problems too, although we can counter a lot of their spells. And control is what gives us a big problem. It's a final score of 50 when you add up all of the power rankings, which is about where we want to be with a budget deck. Not bad at all. It does have some problem cards. Courser of Krufix is a bit of an issue, because them gaining life kind of sucks. And it's out of bolt range, lightning strike range, wild slash range. It's just out of range without us having to 2-for-1 some of the times. And on the play, they can succeed in playing this before we can counter it, which is kind of a pain in the ass, to be honest with you. Some control, like I said, Jutai and Silumgar sucks. He's hexproof, and even if he wasn't hexproof, we can't deal 7 damage without spending like 2 or 3 cards. So Silumgar is also a bit of an issue for us. But at the end of the day, this is a very, very fun deck to play. Let me know how you feel about this. I understand if you want Nullify or Disdainful Stroke in the main deck. Makes plenty of sense to me, but Calculated Dismissal really, really is good, guys. Try it out. Let me know how you feel about it. I'm Dev from SBMTG. If you like the content, like, share, comment, subscribe. I'm probably going to do red-black impact trimmers next. Lot of talk about that. Let us know how you feel about that. I know the video's running long. Appreciate you sticking with us. Thanks for watching, my wizards.